أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين أما بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Inshallah, first of all, in this brief presentation, inshallah, this brief talk, I want to preface it by saying that on May 18th, I believe, and someone from the Shura can correct me but if I'm wrong, but Sheikh Mukhtar will be delivering a lecture, workshop, on the ethics of ikhtilaf, difference of opinion, in our fiqh, in our Islamic legal tradition, and why that ikhtilaf, why those differences are not only part and parcel of the deen, but are also critically important to the deen as well. In other words, the absence of such a system would bring about ruin to the system, and what that means in terms of having a deen that embraces ikhtilaf and diversity. What does that mean? And is that a paradox? Is it a contradiction for a deen that prides unity, tawheed? And so that workshop will be an all-day workshop, inshallah ta'ala. I encourage all of you to attend, inshallah. I believe the date is May 18th, I believe, Saturday. It's a Saturday, inshallah ta'ala. In light of that, in preparation for that upcoming workshop, I thought it would be beneficial to prepare the ground, if you will, a little bit. And today, we want to talk a little bit about Ibn Khaldun, and the idea of fiqh, a society rooted and grounded in fiqh. All of us, or most of us, have heard of Ibn Khaldun. He was born in Tunisia in the early 14th century of the Common Era, the year 1332 he was born. He died in the year 1406 in Cairo. And he was a Berber, but he had Arab roots, and his lineage was traced back to Arabs in Hadramaut, in Yemen. And from there, he has a nasab, a lineage going directly back through the Arabs in Hadramaut called the Haba'ib. There's a group of tribes, a scholarly family in Hadramaut called the Haba'ib, plural of the word Habib. And the Haba'ib exist today, and they are a group of scholars that live and dominate in the Hadramaut region. They teach there actively, and they are all connected in biological lineage and spiritual lineage as well to the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. So Ibn Khaldun's lineage goes through the Hadramaut scholars in Yemen to the Prophet ﷺ. He wrote his own biography, and that information helped us a lot, particularly later historians. As you know, he was referred to in European circles as the father of sociology, modern sociology, and also the father of the study of history, otherwise known as historiography, and also the father of economics as well. And so his views on sociology, on society, on history, and economics were pioneering views. And he wrote about these things as ulum, as sciences, way before Europeans wrote about them. But he was coming from a fiqhi mind. And it was that fiqh tradition that informed his outlook and his analysis of human society in general and Islamic society in particular. At the age of 17, he lost both of his parents. And then he went to try to pursue various jobs in what's today is known as Algeria, and even in Granada in Spain. He traveled and he found himself incarcerated, although he was a faqih at that time. He was a young scholar at that time. He received his ijazat in all of the Shara'i sciences, all of them, mashallah, before his parents died. And but because he was without support, he found himself incarcerated. He met friends in jail who had people in high positions. When he got out, also because of his lineage, he was given posts in the political realm, and he became he climbed the political ladder a little bit. And he went in and out of exile because he also wrote against some of the political leaders of his time. And he moved to Egypt. When he moved to Egypt, he was appointed he was given the position of Grand Qadi, Qadi al-Qudat, right, the Grand Judge of Egypt. And he was a scholar in the Maliki school of fiqh. And so he was head of all of the courts that adjudicated and ruled in Egypt according to the Maliki school. He was the head. And this is at age 22. This is at age 20. What was I doing at 22? Yeah. What were we all doing at 22? Subhanallah. He marries, he has kids, and he serves, in the Islamic tradition. Perhaps one day we'll give a talk about the position of Qadi and how the position of Qadi is very different from our own institution today of appellate court judges, and how that's different or similar. Inshallah, perhaps later we'll talk about that at another time. But as a Qadi, the institution of a Qadi has always been in our tradition a temporary institution. In other words, Qadis never served longer than a year to 2 years, 2 years maximum in one place. After 2 years, they are always reassigned to a different place. A job as a Qadi was always a transitory job. It was never a stable job intentionally. And so he held the position as chief judge of the Maliki courts in Cairo, and then he would, after a year, he would be reassigned, or he would have the option to resign from that post and take a year off or something. So he held that post for 6 different cycles, or 6 different assignments. The middle of the second or the third assignment, Ibn Khaldun resigned actually from that position because of a tragedy in his life. He lost his wife and he lost his children in a shipwreck off of the coast of the city of Alexandria in Egypt today. And so because of that tragedy, he resigned his post as Qadi and took time out. He took perhaps we would say today, a sabbatical or leave of absence from all political and social life. And he went into retreat, just like Imam al-Ghazali did. He went into retreat, spiritual retreat, and khalwa, away from human civilization and away from the hustle and bustle of urban life for 3 years. 3 years. He said, khalas. Actually, before he went into retreat, after hearing of the death of his wife and children, he resigned his post, and first he went to Hajj. After he came from Hajj, then he went into Khalwa. And for 3 years he was just absent. And in this 3-year period, he works a little bit on his biography, but he doesn't finish it in this period. He finishes it later on. But he writes what we call his magnum opus, his major work, his crucial work, which survived until today and became a transformative piece of work in the Islamic tradition. It was hailed and studied and praised in the Ottoman times, and in the European colonial times it was also heavily studied, heavily analyzed. And even today, this work serves as a reviving piece of a reviving contribution, or a contribution that revives an Islamic approach to the study of civilization. And that is his work, Al-Muqaddimah. Right? The Muqaddimah. We want to talk a little bit about that and just present it in some general ideas and concepts from the Muqaddimah, and so that we may reflect on the value of this work and its contents. There's no way we can do full analysis on the Muqaddimah at this time. But there are some main concepts that are very important for us. And so there are three broad pieces, inshallah ta'ala, that we want to share with you today. One is his analysis of human beings, of the bashar. Two, his analysis, after coming from his analysis of a human being, then he provides an analysis of society at large. And then, third, he provides an analysis of the core aspects of that society, of the human society in general, and he introduces the study of history in this way. History had not been definitively, or shall we say, scientifically studied before. Ibn Khaldun takes his knowledge of fiqh and his knowledge of hadith and his knowledge of isnad, his knowledge of mantiq and logic, and even to a certain degree philosophy, and he combines all of that with the study of human society. And he makes amazing, profound statements about human society and civilization, and then he makes a particular observation about Muslim society, inshallah ta'ala. And this we want to share with you, inshallah ta'ala, and then later on further discussions we pick up from there. But as we will slowly as a community get into the knowledge of the study of Islamic studies and fiqh and things of that nature, this sort of backdrop is very important to understand. First, bashar, human beings. Ibn Khaldun first says that all human beings, al-insan, the human being is madani, is civilized, bit-taba, by nature. That's a radical and a profound statement. And that shocked the colonial European world, which was built on the idea that there's two types of societies, a civilized society and an uncivilized society. Or a civilized society, i.e. a very Christian society, and a barbaric, animal-like society, non-Christian society. And so he says human beings are madani bit-taba, are civilized by nature because of the fact that Allah Ta'ala has created us in need of each other, in a state of faqr. And in our state of faqr, our state of impoverishment and need, we have a natural desire and a natural inclination to lean on each other. There is no such thing as independence. Now you take that form, that phrase, and you look at it today, it has radical implication. There's no such thing as independence. Human beings are by nature dependent. And because they're dependent, we develop either basic or more complex ways of depending on each other, benefiting from each other. And so we need each other at the basic level for our own ghida, our own nourishment, our libas, our clothing, our aman, our safety, and also our sense of just our maslaha, our well-being. There's no way to get out of that sense of interdependence, depending on each other, relying on each other, helping each other. Even if we want to survive just based on wheat and barley, we need machines to grind that up and to transform that into something else, and somebody has to make that machine. or we have to go get it. There's no such thing as a human being that can survive just by themselves. We rely on each other. And because of that, humans will always interact with each other. Khalas. That's the ijtima'i. There will always be a level of ijtima'i, of socialization. Now because of that level of ijtima'iyya, that level of social behavior, because we know that we rely on each other like that, so that allows us to have a certain level of solidarity and ukhuwa. Okay? A certain level of brotherhood. And we know that we should not violate each other. And it doesn't matter, he said, we'll come to that in just a second. So that's the first principle. That human beings are civilized by nature. And here civilized does not mean that we have technology. It just means we use means to secure our own needs. Be those means primitive or be they sophisticated and advanced. And therefore, the meaning of civilization in the Khaldunian sense is directly related to the human beings being able to peacefully negotiate their relations in order to meet their needs. Now, where does this come from? What is the importance of me being able to work with you, you being able to work with each other because you have needs? As a qadi, this is the core of what a qadi is doing. The qadi in his training as a judge, as a qadi, the basic rule and the basic function of a qadi is not just to apply the sharia in a legal sense. It is to make sure that those two persons, the defendant and the accused, right, or the prosecutor and the defendant, that those individuals, whatever problem is there, the qadi's job is to help them negotiate and to put their lives back in track, right, back on track. That's the purpose of the qadi. Most people think qadis are just applying laws in the American judicial system sense. That's not the case. A qadi has to look at two individuals and look at how the relationship between them was broken. And then help them get back on the track to negotiate their own relationship and to repair their own relationship so that they can continue to exist in the community. And so from his experience as a qadi, he says this is the purpose of human beings, that we negotiate with each other so that we can derive benefit from each other. And this is civilization. And he says there's two kinds. There's two types of civilization. There's a very urban civilization and a very rural civilization. And the urban civilization he calls Hadari or Medini, from Medina. Right? So this is an urban civilization. And the other one is called Badawa or Badawi civilization. From the word Bedouin in English we get that. It's a rural, nomadic civilization though. He uses the word civilization. Just because they live on camels or what have you, or they're nomadic, doesn't mean they're not civilized. Doesn't mean they're barbaric. But he says these two civilizations are very different. In the Hadara civilization, they have a more sophisticated and advanced system of authority. And the Badawi civilization, they're more tribal-like. They have they have authority, but not like the Medini system. It's more warlike. And then he says but both groups have a sense of solidarity and support. That's where they're united. But the point of their difference is how they exercise their authority. Okay. The second difference, he says, is that in the Medini society, all right, or in the Hadari or the urban society, that society is more prone to la'ab and lahu, comfort and leisure. Look at that. more prone to comfort and leisure and relaxation. Whereas the Bedouin society is more prone to activities and struggle. And they constantly have to struggle to meet their needs. Whereas the urban society, they get more comfortable. They devise creative ways to have their needs met so they don't have to struggle. They devise new technology. And this new technology allows them to struggle less. And then they learn how to struggle less and struggle less. And when they learn how to struggle less, then automatically they prefer a life of comfort and leisure. And so they develop games. They develop la'ab. And then when they develop games, the amusement, then they start to develop habits that take away from their civilized nature in their nafs. In other words, they develop habits that make them weak in the nafs sense. What he means by that is, the more buildings we construct, the more technologically advanced we get, the more vulnerable and weaker we are from a spiritual point of view. Such that when we fortify ourselves on the outside, right, with that comes the lifestyle of comfort and luxury, and that makes us soft on the inside. So our values, he says, in the urban society, they're more prone, or we're more prone to activities and ways of life that can take us away from the Shari'i lifestyle. Whereas in the Bedouin, or the hard struggling life, the life on the edge, the life in the village, the life away from the urban society, it's still based on struggle. Not a lot of time at all for leisure. And so that lifestyle of constantly struggling and working hard, ta'ab, teaches us, or teaches that person, to be strong spiritually as well. To be on their guard spiritually as well. And so there's a benefit, he said, to hard work and labor. There's a spiritual benefit. That with the external struggle and jihad and juhd and effort, that teaches us to be strong internally as well. And with the more comfort that we have externally, the more relaxed we become externally, the more relaxed we become internally. And so the other thing he says is that the more relaxed and the more luxurious and the more leisure and the more comfort we have as a society, the more we're prone to attack from the outside. And attacks from the outside occurs, and attacks from the inside, shaitan, occurs as well. Both of those go hand in hand, he says. And so he goes in this direction with the theory of civilization. And he talks about how civilizations rise and they fall. They improve and they decline. How the urban civilization becomes very strong, very technologically advanced, very powerful, but then they also start to become weak in values. And because they become weak in values and they prefer comfort, the Bedouin society, which is used to struggle, rises up and attacks and revolts, and they topple them. And then that Bedouin society, they become stronger and stronger, and then they develop more technology from having conquered the next country, right? And then they develop leisure, and they develop comfort, and they become weak, and another society rises up against them. And so he talks about the cycle of civilization and this cycle of society. This is his general analysis, and then he talks about something specific. He said, there's something special about Muslim society. And he said, what makes Muslim society so special is the one thing that makes us different from them is not our history per se, although the history is different. It's not the language per se, although the language is different. He said every society has a history. Every society has a language. Those things are unique to that society, but that's not the core of what differentiates us from them, so to speak. The core is that Muslim society is born and bred and developed, it matures, it lives, and it dies, and it's directly connected to fiqh, to the fiqhi tradition. The presence of fiqh brings with it the presence of a Muslim society. The absence of the practice of fiqh removes the Islamic part from the society. Okay. That was a very important observation. And fiqh is analyzed at 3 different levels. This is very important. First, we have what's called fiqh al-akbar, the grand or great fiqh. And fiqh al-akbar is understanding. Fiqh means understanding in the linguistic sense. It is understanding of our tawheed and our aqaid, our ways of belief. That is the akbar. There's nothing beyond the akbar in this sense means that it is the bedrock, the foundation upon which everything else is built. Akbar in that sense. It's the foundation. Nothing can break it. Fiqh al-akbar. When we have a solid understanding of the foundation of our civilization as Muslims, that is akbar. And we understand that the only thing greater than that is Allah Ta'ala. But we, living in that fiqh understanding, living in that fiqh mindset, know that our society and our relations with each other, our human relations, our international relations, our relations with the objects and the plants and the animals, all of that is governed by our understanding or lack of tawheed and aqeedah. All of it. Ideally, it is governed by our understanding. That means we understand as a society that we live in a certain intellectual environment. An awareness of Allah Ta'ala at all levels. An awareness that the path that we are trotting as a society that guides our local policies, our state policies, our international policies, all of those things are guided in general by the prophetic decision making, the prophetic way. And that our lifestyle is governed by a heavenly system. We are not disconnected. That is called fiqh al-akbar. And that leads us to understanding and having a particular worldview. Our worldview is different. Because the lens that we perceive the world is through a tawheedi, i'tiqadi lens. It's not through a materialistic, Marxist lens. Right? Or an atheistic, Darwinistic lens. Right? It's through a tawheedic, i'tiqadi lens. That's the way we perceive our environment. Right? And we see different. So that is fiqh al-akbar. And so everyone, no matter their profession, whether they're a government employee, or a physician, or an engineer, or a teacher, or a taxi driver, everybody's got to understand that. Everybody's got to be drenched and drowned and bathed in that tawheed and i'tiqad ocean. Every single member of the society must go through that teaching. That is the mechanism that produces the Muslim mind, the Muslim awareness. The absence of that teaching means that you don't have, that Muslim is deficient in their worldview and other worldview as well. Fiqh al-akbar. Then the second is fiqh zahir. Fiqh zahir. And fiqh zahir is external fiqh. And that is the fiqh that governs human interaction with each other. At that level of fiqh, we're talking about we're talking about ways of life. Our way of life. The Muslim way. That's what that means. How do Muslims marry? Muslims marry the Muslim way. Yani in the Shari'i way. That's what that means. How do Muslims buy and sell? We buy and sell the Muslim way, يعني the Shar'i way. Fiqh governs those interactions. How do we solve our problems? The Muslim way, يعني the Shar'i way. We do it our way. And so an outsider looking in sees human behavior. They see buying and selling, they see marriage and divorce, they see education and parenting and child care, they see the way parks and bridges are taken care of, and they see Muslim this and Muslim art and architecture and Muslim history. They see those things. But they see it the Muslim way, the Shari'i way. They see a way of life. They see leisure, they see comfort, they see striving and hard work, but they see it the Muslim way. They see our hotels and our motels, but they see it the Shari'i way. They see it the hospitals, but they see it the Shari'i way, etc. That's fiqh zahir. That fiqh zahir, that external fiqh, that influences our ways of life, our way of living, it is born and sprouts from fiqh akbar, from that tawheed and aqidah worldview. That foundation is our fiqh akbar. What comes from the foundation is fiqh zahir. And it is through that fiqh zahir that all of our economics and our politics and our education, our sciences, our art, everything goes through that lens. Ibn Khaldun, by the way, was a specialist in calligraphy as well. He was not only faqih, but he was an artist as well. Okay? And so that's fiqh zahir, science and art, human relations, etc. International relations. Finally, the third is fiqh batin. Fiqh zahir, external, fiqh batin, internal, inner fiqh. Fiqh akbar is the foundation. It's our tawheed and our i'tiqad, otherwise known as iman. Fiqh zahir, external, is our sharia, Islam. And fiqh batin, iman, Islam, and ihsan. That's our ihsan. Our fiqh zahir, our external fiqh, governs and advises how we live outside. Our fiqh batin governs and guides the way that we portray our living, and a type of beauty in that way of living. Yani we can live good, but we can live beautifully good. We can do business with each other, but then we can do beautiful business with each other. We can have justice, but then we can have beautiful justice. We can have hospitals and have shifa, but then we can do it beautifully as well. It is the beauty that is added to those acts. And the beauty entails the fact that all of those actions are guided by our desire to act like we see Allah Ta'ala in all of these interactions. That's where that beauty comes from. And so it's the ruh, it's the soul of the fiqh zahir. And every body, every external form needs a substance, needs a soul. Every container needs content. Okay. So when we talk about fiqh, we're talking, and that what Ibn Khaldun says is the core distinguishing factor between Muslim society and non-Muslim society is fiqh. What he means are these three things. The system of us, that this Muslim society is built on a particular foundation. And it has edifices and structures that are done in a particular fashion and form. And then it is decorated and adorned in a different way. And therefore our presentation is different. And so he wrote about that and he analyzed that. And from that, he develops an idea of a science. We have Muslim sciences. When we talk about science, we have an understanding of what a science is. And he said how we define a science is different. How we define history is different. How we view things is different. And he explained all of that. And at that point, when he was writing these things, He was at the Islamic legal development was at its height. It was at its height. The system and the structure of legal reasoning in Islamic law, the way the courts worked, the way the muftis worked, everything was running like a smooth engine. What he did was take this engine and say, this is how we now produce further sciences and arts to enhance our society. And he presents it and he writes about it. And it reaches the European world. Brothers and sisters, I mention this to let us rethink the way that we think. That we live in this society which dominates us with a particular worldview, a particular cultural worldview, a particular way of deciding, a way of life. And we have to go back to writings like this that say, wait a minute, we have our own gem, our own tradition. And everything that we do is informed in our fiqhi tradition. And we have to go back to that thinking, that fiqhi, shara'i mindset. In all of our decision makings, in all of our reasoning, in all of our building of institutions, our mediation, anything and everything that we do. We must go back and return and incorporate this fiqhi, shara'i reasoning. That is who we are at our core. It is not enough to say Muslim and then not understand the fiqhi thinking. Not understand that we need to be grounded in a tawheed and aqidah worldview. How do we perceive what goes on around us in that way? It is not enough to say Islamic school or Islamic institution, but the way that we make decisions and the way that we operate is completely absent of fiqh reasoning and fiqh content. The way that we interact in our homes, with our children, in leisure time, etc. If all of that is absent of the fiqhi norms, then we've lost something that we have to gain. And so part of this discussion, part of Sheikh Mukhtar's presentation, and later on, inshallah ta'ala, we'll have a special seminar on what's going on with us in SMU. Part of this is a revival that we are trying to build. A revival in teaching our Islamic tradition as it was and as it should be. Raising the awareness of what our tradition has to offer at all three of these levels. And changing mindsets and inspiring yourselves and others like you to go into Islamic studies, the studies of fiqh, and to continue and contribute and pass on this legacy, and pick up where Ibn Khaldun left off, and analyze this society, and other societies, and Islamic institutions, and other institutions, and Islamic professions, and other professions with fiqhi reasoning, so that we may begin the long-needed work of providing alternative fiqhi, shara'i solutions to these daily problems that occur in our society, that our current batch of leaders and thinkers and academics and journalists have yet to figure out. It's because there's something missing. And as Muslims, what are we doing here? We have to provide a fiqhi solution to these things. And so I encourage all of you to begin to think about these things. I hope this is the beginning of a preparation for all of you to sort of think about the study of fiqh. What does all this mean? Intentionally, we couldn't cover everything, but we wanted to start a conversation. Sheikh Mukhtar will continue it. After that, I will continue it, inshallah ta'ala. And we will grow together, inshallah ta'ala, in this awareness and in this teaching. ربنا لا تزغ قلوبنا بعد إذ هديتنا وهب لنا من لدنك رحمة إنك أنت الوهاب ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون والسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Anyone have any questions before we close? Inshallah. لا. خير إن شاء الله. السلام عليكم.